Not to come off like one of those old people who think everything was better back in their day, but everything was better back in our day. Our day being the 90s. Movies were better, music was better, and food was better. Not necessarily better for you, it just tasted better. And if you're wondering why that is, you're in luck, because today we're going to take a look at why everything tasted better in the 90s. Before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History Food channel. After that, please leave a comment and let us know what other decades' foods you would like to hear about. Okay, time to throw on a flannel and blast your Nirvana albums, because we're headed back to the 90s. If you weren't around in the 1990s, you missed a party. Highlights included the birth of the World Wide Web, the launch of the Hubble Space Telescope, and the rise of the PlayStation. We could go on all day about all the cool stuff that happened, but that's not what this video is about. So we recommend you go find a Gen Xer and get them reminiscing. What this video is about is the snacks and meals everyone was sucking down while they were witnessing all of the aforementioned awesomeness. And it's a more complicated topic than you think. That's largely because when it came to food, the 90s were all about experimentation and exploration. The end of the Cold War and the rise of the internet drew the whole world closer together. Recipes became easier to exchange, and exotic ingredients became easier to get a hold of. The US saw a surge of interest in once obscure foods like Thai curries, authentic Mexican tacos, and underappreciated Italian classics like tiramisu. And the popularity of sushi, which started growing in the 80s, absolutely exploded in the 90s. At the same time, low-fat diets became all the rage, Caesar salads became culturally ubiquitous, and molecular gastronomy became a thing. 90s snack foods were no less experimental and bizarre. The trends leaned toward interactive snacks that came in unlikely flavor combinations and obnoxiously overstimulating colors. And based on the ingredients in many of them, you'd think companies were handing out bonuses to whoever could squeeze the most high fructose corn syrup into their recipes. We're not going to list all the snacks that made the 90s so iconic here, but if you want a refresher, we recommend checking out our videos about 90s snacks we want back, fun facts about your favorite 90s foods, and facts about 90s lunchbox items that make us kinda miss school. But long story short, it was a hell of a time to be alive and be hungry. If food really tasted better during the 90s than it does now, the simplest explanation would be that it's being made differently. And in some cases, it is, especially when it comes to snack foods. Cereal bars, for example, were a huge deal in the 90s. People loved the convenience of them, and there were supermarket aisles full of them. But despite bearing healthy-sounding names like Nutri-Grain, most of them had little fiber, grain, or anything else of real nutritional value. What they did have a lot of, though, was sugar. Today, most major cereal bar brands contain significantly less of the white stuff and less processed ingredients in general. The result is that they're better for you, but may not taste quite as good. Juice boxes and juice pouches, like the ones made by Capri Sun, were also wildly popular in the 90s. They were relatively cheap, fit right into a lunchbox, and kids loved them. But despite all their claims of being made with real juice, most of them were predominantly flavored with sugar and high fructose corn syrup, which nicely explains why the kids like them so much. There are still such products around these days, but the trend has largely been to sparkling water with natural flavors, which contain no sugar and no calories. Once again, they're healthier than the old versions, but for those with a sweet tooth, they're probably a lot less tasty. 90s kids were also big into gummy fruit snacks. Due to their marketing, they gave many parents the impression that they were made from, or in some way an appropriate substitute for, actual fruit. But the truth is, they were mostly just fruit-flavored gelatin candies that were swimming in sugar and had no real nutritional value. Those kinds of snacks are also still around today, but thanks to a series of lawsuits, some brands, though certainly not all, have stopped claiming that they're made from real fruit. At the same time, there are more brands on the market that are actually made with real fruit. Though as with the previous examples, they might not be quite as sweet as some of the brands we remember. As for fast food, you'll find plenty of Redditors claiming that back in the 90s, fast food joints didn't pre-make their food and leave them sitting around under heat lamps, and as a result, the food tasted better. But that's just plain not true. Pre-making the best-selling items has always been a cornerstone of the fast food model. In fact, it's one of the main reasons the food is fast to begin with. That being said, there have been plenty of changes in the fast food biz since the 90s. McDonald's, for example, stopped using trans fat in their fries in 2008, and there are those who claim to be able to taste the difference. And the sodium content of everything McDonald's serves, including entrees, sides, and desserts, has drastically increased, as have the portion sizes, which can also affect perception of taste. So the million-dollar question is, did food really taste better in the 90s? Well, as we discussed, some of the foods we loved back then are made with different ingredients and recipes, so they may genuinely taste differently. But the truth is, many of those products haven't actually changed that much. Certainly not enough to justify the claim that they tasted significantly better back in the day. So what's really going on? Well, for starters, your senses of smell and taste are closely linked, and they change as you get older. So, hey, at least you've got something to look forward to. Those senses can also be affected by illness, especially COVID and long COVID, as well as allergies, head injuries, certain medical conditions and medications, and habits like smoking. Also worth mentioning is that the number of taste buds you have decreases over the course of your life. As if that isn't bad enough, the ones that don't disappear shrink as you continue to age. And as you might imagine, changes in the number and size of your taste buds can severely impact your perception of taste. The result is that foods you once liked may not taste as good, even if they're made with the exact same ingredients. Conversely, foods you were never particularly fond of might start tasting better. So don't rule out the possibility you'll wake up one morning and suddenly love Brussels sprouts, or tuna fish, or any number of things you currently can't stand. These changes in perception are mostly because your senses of taste and smell fade over time. Sorry to be the ones who have to break it to you, but barring exceptional circumstances, they're probably not going to get any stronger. That means that if you live to be old enough, you might suddenly have trouble telling if the milk smells sour. You also might have trouble cooking because you'll have trouble tasting things, as well as telling if the food is undercooked, overcooked, or even burning. It can actually be fairly frustrating, and research shows it can affect your mood, quality of life, and interest in eating at all. That in turn can lead to undereating, unintentional weight loss, and malnutrition, since you'll no longer be getting the vitamins, minerals, calories, carbohydrates, and proteins your body needs to function. Those who have experienced a loss in their sense of taste are also more prone to over-seasoning their food with things like salt and sugar. And as you can probably guess, that can be wildly unhealthy, especially for those with pre-existing problems like diabetes or high blood pressure. It's a little off topic, but since we brought it up, the experts recommend that those who might be experiencing a loss of smell and taste try to mix things up for themselves by choosing foods with different colors and textures. You could also try seasoning your food with healthy things like olive oil, nuts, onions, garlic, ginger, mustard, hot pepper, lemon juice, lime juice, or herbs like sage, rosemary, and thyme. They didn't say anything about parsley though, so only partial credit for Simon and Garfunkel on that one. If all that doesn't help, you may want to consult an otolaryngologist, which is a doctor who specializes in taste and smell. So now you've learned a new word today. You're welcome. So now that we're done explaining how real-life changes in your brain and the operation of your senses can be responsible for changes in your sense of taste over time, we're now going to pull an about-face and argue that the difference between how things tasted in the 90s and how they taste now is mostly in your head, which is to say, it's really all subjective. Yeah, okay, we know that's a disappointing non-answer, but the truth is that smell and taste are very closely linked to memory. So the memory of those 90s flavors may actually be more potent than the flavors themselves really were. There's also the fact that nostalgia and various other quirks of the human brain can do quite a number on our perception and memory of how things tasted in the first place. One example of this phenomenon is the near universal feeling that food tastes better when it comes off someone else's plate. It sounds silly, but it's a real thing that science backs up. A 2014 study at Yale, for example, found that students reported liking the taste of chocolate more when they shared the experience with someone else. And the results held whether or not the eating partners discussed the taste of chocolate. And a separate but similar study conducted with bitter chocolate found that students reported disliking the taste more when eating it was a communal experience. The study concluded that sharing food had a way of focusing attention on it such that it seemed to amplify the senses. It's a type of behavior that sometimes sometimes known as mentalizing. And the bottom line is that the time you spend thinking about how your cohort feels about the food you're eating, or for that matter, the movie you're watching or the song you're listening to, makes you also think more intensely about your own reactions. Does that mean our favorite 90s foods weren't really as good as we recall? Not necessarily. In fact, our research has turned up more than a few commentators who went back to try their favorite 90s snacks and came away quite satisfied that most were as good as they remembered. But this type of subjectivity of perception is really what explains why people who grew up in the 70s think everything tasted better in the 70s. People who grew up in the 80s think everything tasted better in the 80s. And people who grew up in the 90s think everything tasted better in the 90s. It's also why in 30 years, assuming society survives that long, people growing up now will think everything tasted better in their day. So if you feel like trying those Dunkaroos once more, for old time's sake, we would say go for it. But if you want to be sure it's going to live up to the memory, it might not hurt to bring a friend along for the ride. So what do you think? Did food really taste better in the 90s? Let us know in the comments below, and while you're at it, check out some of these other weird history food videos.